We continue now at the top of Daf Tesamad Aleph and Meseches Makkos. This is Makkos Daf 9a. On the previous summit, the Gemara brought a brisa which said that a Yisrael is gola v'loka al yedei kusi v'eved, and a kusi and eved, they are loka v'gola al yedei Yisrael. And the Gemara explained, we understand golus. What golus means to say is, let's say a Jewish person would kill by mistake a kusi or an eved, then he would go to golus, or if an eved or a kusi kills a Yisrael, then they would go to golus. That we understand. The question is, what does it mean in the brisa when it says that the Yisrael gets malchus through the kusi and the eved and the kusi, they get malchus through the Yisrael? And the Gemara at first suggested that what we're talking about is cursing. Let's say they curse one another. So, for example, the Jew would curse the eved or the kusi would curse, or the kusi or the eved would curse the Yisrael, then they would get malchus. But the Gemara said that cannot be, because when it comes to a kusi, even if you're going to say that the kusim had a proper conversion, the kusim were the Samaritans, but still they're not osam maisa amcha, they don't do the deeds of your nation, they don't follow the laws properly, and so therefore there actually would not be a prohibition, there would not be malchus for a situation of cursing the kusi. And then the Gemara suggested that maybe we're talking about some situation of kasher zamam. We're talking about a situation, for example, where the Yisrael testified against the Eved or the Kusi, and it was something that involved the kasher zamam or the Edom zomim, and it involved a punishment of malchus in that case, as we've seen before. There are cases of Edom zomim which get malchus, and so maybe that's what it means, that they testified against one another, and they're going to receive malchus. But the Gemara said that doesn't make sense either, because an Eved Kanani is not allowed to be a witness, is not allowed to be an aid, so that cannot be the case. And so finally, now the Gemara is on the third answer. The case is that they struck one another with a hakah she'ein ba shava pruta. They struck him in a fashion where it wasn't even damage that was worth a pruta, so there's no monetary payment. And in such a situation, we say that there is malchus. The Amar Rabbi Yami, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, because Rabbi Yami says that Rabbi Yochanan says hiko hakah she'ein ba shava pruta. If he strikes him a hakah, he strikes him a strike that is not worth a pruta loka, so then the punishment is malchus. And so the idea is if they strike one another with a hakah she'ein ba shava pruta, then they're going to get malchus. Now the problem over here is that maybe when it comes to hakah as well, it has to be by osa maisa amcha, and therefore there would not be malchus in a situation where he struck the kusi. But the Gemara says according to this we would have to say v'lo makshinon hakah leklala. We don't compare striking to klala. By cursing we say it has to be osa maisa amcha, but we would not say that when it comes to hakah. And Rashi explains, she'ein ba shava pruta, again, striking him with a hakah that's not worth a pruta, shem yesh ba tashlumei pruta, meshalim ve'eno loka, because if it would be worth a pruta or more, so then you'd pay monetary damages, and you wouldn't get malchus. The alfinim b'chsubas be'lunar, as we learn out in ksubas, beferish ribsa torah chova b'chaver latashlum, and that again, somebody wounds his friend, he has to pay. V'chi ein ba shava pruta, but if it's not worth a pruta loka, then there's malchus. Shavar al lo yosef pen yosef, because then they violate the transgression of lo yosef pen yosef. That's referring to the fact that when a person administers lashes in court, there's a certain amount that is supposed to be given. If you go over that, you strike the person additional, so that's a violation of that lav. V'lo makshin hakah l'klala, and according to this approach, we do not compare hakah to klala, striking to cursing. Lomar, to say shekashem she'eno loka al kilalaso, just like you don't get malchus for cursing him, meaning for cursing the kusi. T'chsiv bi'amcha, again, because it says it has to be ba'amcha, meaning to say it has to be ba'osa ma'isa amcha. Kach lo yilka al hakah. So then you might argue the same is true, you don't get malchus for striking him. Uplugsi v'Sanhedrin, Rashi says this is a machlokas in Sanhedrin, de'ika d'makish v'ika d'lo makish. There are some who make the comparison and some who do not make the comparison. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, Chutz me'al yedei ger toshav, except for through a ger toshav. And Rashi explains, Chutz mi ger toshav, except for a ger toshav. Umashma d'mitarvayu memait le. The implication of the Mishnah is that it's excluded in both directions. The lo hu gola al yedei harigoso elanerag, that the ger toshav, he will not go to golus if he kills the Yisrael, rather he is going to be killed. Velo Yisrael gola olav, and also a Yisrael, if he kills the ger toshav, he's not going to go to golus. That's the simple understanding of the Mishnah. Again, a ger toshav is a person who lives in Eretz Yisrael. That's the toshav. He's a resident of Eretz Yisrael, and he accepts upon himself the Zayin mitzvahs b'nei Noach, the Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach. And so in any case, it sounds like the ger toshav is completely excluded from the halacha of Golus in both directions. And the Gemara says, Alma, we see, ger toshav ovid kochavim, who that a ger toshav is essentially the equivalent of a non-Jew in this regard. And the Gemara says, Ema Seifa, but let's look at the end of the Mishnah. The end of the Mishnah says, ger toshav gol al yedei ger toshav, that a ger toshav does go to exile through a ger toshav. Presumably, if he kills another ger toshav by mistake, he's going to be exiled. And so how do we explain that? And the Gemara answers, Amar Rav Kahana. Rav Kahana says, lo kash, it's not difficult. Kan beger toshav, shahara ger toshav. In one case, we're talking about a a ger toshav who kills another ger toshav. Kan beger toshav shaharag Yisrael. In the other case, we're talking about a ger toshav that kills a Yisrael. And Rashi explains lokash. It's not difficult. Ger toshav shaharag ger toshav gola. Again, a ger toshav who kills another ger toshav by mistake, he goes to exile. Kidiktani behedya, like it says explicitly in the Mishnah. Vereja, and in the beginning of the Mishnah, kishaharag es Yisrael eino gola. That's talking about again where a ger toshav kills a Yisrael, a Jew, then he does not go to Golas, to Losagile Begolas, because their Golas is not even enough for him in that situation. And the Gemara continues, Ika dorami kroy hadadi. There are those who say that it is a contradiction within the psukim, because it's written in the pasuk Livnei Yisrael v'lager v'latosha besocham tiyena sheisha arim. It talks about the fact that these 6 cities of the Arim Miklat, they're for Bnei Yisrael, they're for Klal Yisrael, and they're for the ger and the toshav. And then but it's also written v'hayu lachem ha'arim lemiklat. It says these cities will be as a refuge for you, and that implies lachem v'lo lagerim. That implies that it's for you, but it's not for the gerim, it's not for the ger toshav, and so it's a contradiction within the psukim whether or not the Arei Miklat apply, and therefore the ger toshav. And the Gemara continues and answers. Amar Rav Kahana says lokash, it's not difficult. Kan beger toshav shaharag Yisrael. In one case, we're talking again about a ger toshav that kills a Yisrael. There he does not go to the Arei Miklat. And kan beger toshav shaharag ger toshav. And over here we're talking about a case again where a ger toshav kills another ger toshav. There, in fact, he does go to the Arei Miklat. He does go to Golus. And the Gemara continues, Uramini, we have the following contradiction from a Braisa. The Braisa says, Lefikach, therefore, ger v'ovad kochavim, if you have a ger toshav, or an ovad kochavim, an idol worshipper, a non-Jew, shahargu, if they kill, neheragin, they will be killed. And Rashi explains, Lefikach, asheva mitzvahs shenitzdavu b'nei Noach koi. This is going on the Zion mitzvahs b'nei Noach. The kaim alon, we've established as harasan zuhi misasan, that the warning against violating the sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach, that is the warning for the death penalty. Lefikach, therefore, ger toshav o ovad kochavim, if you have a ger toshav or an ovad kochavim, shahargu, that they kill, and neheragin, they are going to be killed. And the point over here is va'afilu b'shogeg, even if they do this by mistake, she'ein b'nei Noach tzrichen hasra, there's no requirement of hasra, of warning by b'nei Noach. It applies even to shogeg kedamina b'Sanhedrin, like we say in Meseches Sanhedrin. That's what it says in this bris. If they kill even by mistake, they are going to get killed. It's not going to be a situation of golus. It's not going to be a situation of exile. And so the Gemara now continues and says, Katani ger dum when it mentions a ger toshav over here, that should be similar to the situation of an ovad kochavim of the non-Jew. Ma ovad kochavim loshna dekatal bar minei, veloshna dekatal delav bar minei. Just like by the non-Jew, it doesn't matter if he kills someone like him, meaning another non-Jew, or let's say it's not a non-Jew. It doesn't matter who the ovad kochavim kills. The halacha is exactly the same. Neherag, he is killed. So av ger, so too when it comes to a ger toshav, loshna dekatal bar minei, veloshna dekatal delav bar minei neherag. It shouldn't matter if he kills somebody like him or not like him. He's always going to get the death penalty, meaning if a ger toshav kills another ger toshav, the implication from this brisa is that it is the death penalty and it is not golus. And the Gemara continues and answers. Amar Rav Chisda says, Lokash, it's not difficult. Kan shehargu derech yerida, kan shehargu derech aliyah. In one case, we're talking about where the killing happened with a downward motion. In the other case, we're talking where the killing happened with an upward motion. And the Gemara explains the difference. Derech yerida, when it comes to a downward motion, the Yisrael Gali, where again, if a Jew does that and he kills by mistake in a downward motion, he's exiled. So ihunami sagile begolus. So he also, it is sufficient with golus. He's going to get the punishment of golus. That's talking again when a ger toshav kills another ger toshav. But derech aliyah, but if it's an upward motion, the Yisrael pater, where the Jew would be pater in that case, hu nerag, so he's going to be killed in that situation. But the Gemara continues, Amar le Rabba, the Bach over here changes it from Rava to Rabba. Rabba said to him, V'lav kal v'chomer, on the contrary, it should be a kal v'chomer in the other direction. Umad derech yeridif, when it's in a downward motion, the Yisrael Gali, where we say the Jew goes to exile, Ihu nami sagi le begolus, so he also, it's sufficient that he goes to Golus. So derech aliyah, when it comes to derech aliyah in an upward motion, the Yisrael pater, where the Yisrael is actually pater, is exempt, that certainly seems more lenient. So Ihu nerag, so then you're saying he's going to be killed. That doesn't make any sense. And so the Gemara instead says, Elo Amar Rabba, rather Rabba says, Be Omer Mutter. What we're talking over here is in a situation of Omer Mutter. And Rashi explains, but Omer Mutter, when the ger toshav says that he thought that it was mutter to kill, that's the situation nerag. That's the situation of the brisa where he is killed. If a ger toshav kills another ger toshav, claiming that he thought it was mutter, so then he gets killed. The lav bar golasu, because Omer Mutter is not a scenario where a person goes to exile, but if you have a situation of real shogeg, a ger toshav kills another ger toshav b'shogeg, so then he will go to golus, like our Mishnah says. But the Gemara continues, Amar le Abaya, Abaya said back to him, he said back to Rabba, Omer mutter onasu, Omer mutter, that's actually considered a total accident. You can't say that he gets the death penalty for Omer mutter. And Amar le, so Rabba says back to him, he responds to Abaya, Sha'ani Omer, because I say Omer mutter karav l'mezidu. I say that Omer mutter is actually karav l'mezid. That's actually closer to doing it on purpose. And that's why, again, in that situation, the ger toshav who kills the ger toshav by Omer mutter is going to get the death penalty. And the Gemara continues and says, V'azdu l'taymayu, they follow their reasonings. Rashi here explains, V'azdu l'taymayu, Rav Chisda, d'lo boy l'shanuye ba'omer mutter. Rav Chisda didn't want to give the answer that we're talking about Omer mutter. He didn't want to say that that's the situation where the ger toshav gets the death penalty, to kasavar onasu, because Rav Chisda, he holds that that's an onus. Omer mutter is considered onus. The Rabba d'yamar nereg, and then Rabba, who says that he does get the death penalty, it's karav l'mezid, they are l'taymayu. That's what the Gemara means to say over here. Again, Rav Chisda was the one who gave the answer of derech yerida and derech aliyah. As the Gemara continues, the Itmar, it was stated the following, Machlokas Amoraim, Kesavar behema v'nimtza adam. This is talking about a ger toshav who kills. He thought that he was killing an animal. It turns out it was really a person. Kenani v'nimtza ger toshav. He thought it was a Kenani. It turns out it's a ger toshav. Rava Omer Chayev. Rava says in that case it's Chayev. We're talking here Chayev, the death penalty. And the reason is Omer mutter karav l'mezidu, because Omer mutter is considered close to being on purpose. And again, the ger toshav in such a situation of Omer mutter is going to get the death penalty. Rav Chisda Omer Pater, and Rav Chisda is going to say Pater because Omer mutter onasu, because Omer mutter is considered to be onus, it's considered to be an accident. Rashi explains Kesavar behema, he thought it was an animal he was killing. Hareze ka Omer mutter, that's similar to Omer mutter. Why? Shahayolo lilmud, because by Omer mutter the person should have learned, that really the person should have really learned what the halacha is, even though he's saying that he thought it was mutter. V'yav zen, also over here where he thought it was an animal, hayolo la'ayin, he should have checked to v'ger toshav askinan, and Rashi says again, we're talking here about a ger toshav, and again chayev, when we say chayev over here, we mean chayev misa. We mean to say that the ger toshav is chayev misa. He's chayev the death penalty. And the Gemara continues, Eisvei Rava Rav Chisda. Rava asked Rav Chisda the following question. Again, Rav Chisda said that Omer mutter is karav la'onas, but the pasuk says Hincha meisa lo isha asher lakachta. This is talking about when Avimelech took Sarah, and so HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to Avimelech, you're going to die because of the woman that you took. And this is a situation of Omer mutter. Avimelech claimed that he thought this was mutter. And my lav, is it not bidei adam? He's going to die bidei adam, meaning b'dinei adam, according to the laws of man. And the idea over here is that he is considered to be held liable by Omer mutter. It's considered apparently to be karav l'mezid. That's why he's liable to the death penalty. And the Gemara says, lo no bidei shamayim. We're talking here of misa bidei shamayim. We're not talking about misa bidei adam. And the Gemara says, dekanami, we'll even bring a proof to this, because it's written mechatoli, from sinning to me, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so it seems to be bidei shamayim. But the Gemara says that's not really a proof. The fact that it says mechatoli, because v'letaimech, because according to your reasoning, v'chotasi le'lokim, it also says in the pasuk that I'm going to sin to God. This was talking about by Yosef and Potiphar's wife. So le'lokim v'lo la'adam, you think that's only to God and not to man? Eladino maser la'adam, rather obviously the law, the judgment is given over to man. Hachanami dino maser la'adam. Here also it could be that it means that the judgment is given over to man, and so you can't say that there's a dekonami, that there's a proof that it's bidei shamayim. It is possible that it means bidei adam, and it's possible as well that it means bidei shamayim. There is no proof from this pasuk with Avimelech. And the Gemara continues, Eisvei Abai l'Rava. Abai asks Rava the following question, Hagoy gam tzadik tarog. Avimelech says, are you going to kill somebody who is righteous? And the point over here, the Gemara, is there was really no response. It sounds like they're accepting what Avimelech is saying, that he's righteous, that it was an accident. And the Gemara says, no, there really was a response. Hasam over there, Kidukam Mahadri love. It's like they answered to him, V'ato hashev esha so ishki navihu. You should return the wife of the man because he is a prophet. And Rashi explains, my lav bidei adam, again, is it not bidei adam that they were going to kill Avimelech, that he was liable to the death penalty, meaning bedine b'nei Noach, meaning according to the laws of b'nei Noach. V'zeh Omer mutter haya. Avimelech was an Omer mutter, kesavar achos Avram, because he thought this was the sister of Avram. Le'elokim v'lo la'adam, and again the Gemara brought the pasuk v'chatasi le'elokim by Yosef. Is it to God and not to man? V'halo yodeya she eishes ish. Again, in that situation, he knew that this was the wife of Potiphar. So he wasn't only sinning to God, he was sinning to the person as well. Hagoy gam tzadik tarog, and then again Avimelech says, are you going to kill a righteous person? Kasal gadaitoch shehodelo HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Gemara here initially thinks that HaKadosh Baruch Hu admitted to Avimelech's argument. Alma onasu, you see that Avimelech was considered an onus, and again that's the case of Omer mutter. And the Gemara then says, no, kidukam mahadri le'lov. It's like the response was lo hodel dvarav. HaKadosh Baruch Hu did not admit to what he was saying. Sheheshiv lo teshuva. He actually responded to him, shechayev misa, that he is liable to the death penalty. She'eno tzadik b'davar, that he's not righteous in this matter. Shehayelo lilmo derech eretz, that he should have learned Derech Eretz, Kedim Mefarish V'Yazal, as the Gemara is about to explain, and Amud Beis, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video, and Daf Tes Amud Beis.